Hi, looking to retire in 2017? Hey, there's a few things you need to do before you walk out the door and say goodbye to the boss. Number one, you want to make sure you have a good understanding of where your income's coming in retirement and the expenses that are going out. All too often, people are used to spending because they have the money come in. You got to remember, when you're retired, you're essentially unemployed and you're going to have pensions, Social Security, and things like that that are going to get you on your way. Next, you want to take a look at, hey, where am I going to move my 401k to? Because the reality with 401ks at your company, they have multiple expenses and fees that you shouldn't be paying when you're retired. So you want to make sure you have a good location for it, whether it be Schwab, Fidelity, or whomever. 3, you want to look at your health care. You got to remember, Social Security or Medicare won't start for you until you're 65. And if you're still working and you're 65, you might consider having the company's plan because it's less expensive than going on Medicare. Social Security. When do you take Social Security? If you have longevity in the family, you might consider 66 instead of 62 because you'll receive so much more money. And last but not least, you have to look at your long-term health. People who are married, live past the age of 65, have a 50% chance of living into their mid-90s. So it's really important that you look at assisted living, long-term care, and these continued care retirement communities because that assistance is expensive and you don't want to derail your retirement plan. One of the biggest things that you want to understand or keep in mind is this: the last thing you want to do is go to the doctors and the doctor says, you know what, you're going to live another 5 years, you're so healthy. The problem is you only have another 3 years worth of money. Retirement is all about the experiences you can have, the people you can be with, and be there for the ones you love. That's the tip of the day. It's the most wonderful time of the year, or so they say. This is the time of the year where you have those family gatherings, and it could be joyous and filled with a lot of family drama, too much eating, drinking, alcohol, not sleeping, exhaustion, stress. We have Paula Shaw here. You know what? She wrote the book, Grief, When Will the Pain Ever End? But she's talking about some wonderful things that we need to pay attention to so we have a wonderful time during this holiday season. Paula, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. So good to be here.
You know, and I'm actually really happy you're here. And the reason being is I have a number of clients that we've just started talking about, and some of them feel that this season is never theirs. They give up their life for the holiday seasons, and they're overcommitted, and you know, it's just some of the stuff, it causes a lot of stress. And you know what, there's one client, we always meet before Thanksgiving because she's always edgy after Thanksgiving to Christmas, but once Christmas is over, she's good again.
Sounds like a lot of us. Well, your client is absolutely right. You know, I was just thinking this morning how funny it is that we call this the most wonderful time of the year. And women especially are notorious for saying, it's my favorite time of the year. And I ask myself, why? And by the way, I was one of those.
Okay.
I was the Christmas elf every Christmas. And then when you really think about it, our load pretty much triples. Now, on top of all of the other things that we do every day when we're already too busy, now we've got shopping and wrapping and baking and cards and decorating. I spent a whole afternoon decorating yesterday, and I live alone. I don't even have to please the kids anymore. But we do it because we have our traditions and we have our version of how the holidays should be. And most of that pretty much requires a huge energy outlay for us and a large, large load of stress.
So what can people do to reduce the stress?
I'm so glad you asked me that.
Cut out the family? No, I'm just kidding.
Move and don't give anybody your address. Okay, let's get serious. Actually, I think it's critical that we have a daily ritual that's just focused on us. Whether that's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's reading a special book of readings or just sitting quietly in your garden. To give yourself some moments of calm and peace every day that are just for you. Now, that doesn't mean your phone's on, and it doesn't mean you're on the computer. That doesn't count at all. But just having that quiet time where you go into your core and just give those moments of quiet to yourself. And I also love doing that on a walk. I call them gratitude walks. And you just go for a walk and take the time to notice the flowers that are blooming, the sky that's blue, the wonderful day, the way the air feels, fragrances. It brings you right into the moment, and it's incredibly calming. We need to remember that the reason we get stressed is because the body is in one place, but the mind is somewhere else. And when that happens, we can't be calm because we're not present. And then we take on way more tomorrows and way more moments than we're designed to. We're designed to be right here, right now. And if we just do that, then we can handle it really in a pretty calm, together way.
So what you're saying is we need to decompress a little bit all by ourselves without nothing else there,
yes,
and then move forward.
Yes.
Now, what about taking time for oneself?
Oh, critical.
I mean, not by that, but I mean like when you schedule time to go do things, make it sure it fits for you as opposed to everybody else.
Oh, you mean being able to say no to some of the invitations? Critical. Again, I say critical. Because you know what happens to us? We get so overbooked that then you look at your calendar and you're already tired. You're already going, oh no. So how do you have joy? How is it a happy, joyful time of year? And it can be. You know, I was just yesterday while I was decorating, I was watching, just letting the holiday movies roll. And when you think about the sparkly lights and the decorations and the giving, you know, and the family time that can be lovely, that's pretty cool. That is the part of all this that we love. But that becomes not the core anymore. It's not the center of it all. What's the center is the to-do list. And that is endless at this time of year. So we need to focus on what is important. Why do we do the holidays anyway? What's really important about the holidays? And I think that's more about love and joy, giving and receiving graciously. You know, there are lots of lovely things about the holidays if we allow ourselves to actually experience them.
So in other words, we want to be kids again.
Yes. Oh, I love that you said that. Yes. Because they get excited about all the right things. Well, they're a little focused on the toys.
That's true.
But
and the candy.
The children don't lose the wonder. They still are into the wonder of it all. The wonder of the lights and the decos and the fun. And I think if we can get back to the wonder, we've come a long way.
So the key to reducing stress is take time for yourself and get back to the wonder of the holidays, and you'll be fulfilled, happy, and joyful.
And yeah, just focus on what's important, and it's all of what you just said.
Paula, thanks for coming on the show today. This was just wonderful information for people who are looking to de-stress during these holiday times. For more information, you want to go to the Silver-Haired Tsunami website. If you'd like to get a copy of Paula's book, Grief Will the Pain Ever End, you can just go to the website or go to her website at
paulashaw.com.
Perfect. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
My name is Mike Peters and my wife Cindy. We've been residents of Escondido for over 40 years, and we've been really happy with Baker Solar. Being a banker, I'm a numbers guy, and I looked at the numbers very seriously before I chose solar. Right now, my savings is about $3,000 a year. As the 20-year lease goes on, I'll be saving more, so I'm extremely happy with the system.
Lots of people watched the installation and a lot of questions, and I just have to tell them it's all worked out great. We're saving lots of money. It's paying off big time.
Hey, did you know real estate sales in San Diego County are significantly higher than they were last year, and even more so from the year before? This is a very unique year. We have Glenna Shannon here to talk to us about buying and selling real estate and why everything's going crazy here in November and December. Glenna Shannon, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having us again.
Thanks for having us.
I'm glad you're here. This is something special. We got sales are up in November, December. You know what? Is it because Janet Yellen has threatened to raise interest rates and people are going, hey, I better lock in a loan now and buy a new house or sell mine? What's going on?
That's definitely part of it. Since the election, we saw rates jump up almost a quarter to half point, depending on the day. They've been fluctuating a little bit. And that spurred a lot of activity, and a lot of the people that would be waiting until after the new year they're all getting into the market. I better get in now before rates go up even more and I get priced out of a home. Then we've seen some sellers now coming onto the market that thought they were going to wait until next year. Same reason. We better get on now because we know prices are still great and we have buyers that are out there. And we always get the question just in general, are the holidays a good time to sell, or should we wait until next year? And we always advise people, if you're ready to move now, the holidays are a great time to sell.
Yeah. One of the things, too, is that, we're just coming off the Thanksgiving holiday, and we put a property on the market on Saturday. We had 2 offers already and are entering escrow today. So it just shows you that the buyer pool out there is very, very active. And again, they're trying to get ahead of the curve and knowing what interest rates are today, which they can tell, rather than waiting till next year and not knowing what's going to happen.
It sounds like they're active and they're serious.
Yes.
If you put it on Saturday and it's already in escrow on Monday, that's great.
Yeah.
So what are the things that people need to do if they're putting their house together, getting it ready for sale before the end of the year?
Yep. One of the big things that don't over-decorate.
Yes.
Everyone loves to decorate and get ready for the holidays, but if you're going to be going on the market, now's the time to, maybe keep the Christmas decorations put away or only bring out one or two. Yeah.
So a Griswold Christmas is not the way to go.
Not the ideal time to do it this year if you're going on the market with it.
No, 7,000 light bulbs. Yeah. Check. Okay.
Yep. So that's a big part. And then a big part, whether it's now or it's in 2 or 3 months, but we always talk about just preparing the home, decluttering, putting things away, creating more space, taking down a lot of personal photos and personal items. You really want a buyer to be able to walk in, and you don't want them focused on your family and the pictures and everything else. You want them focused on the home with that. And that's part of what we do whenever we meet with a seller and we go through our consultation, helping them get their home ready, is really that initial part as far as preparing the home with that. And that's crucial whether it's now or it's in 3 months. It's a key component to being able to make sure you're able to get top dollar.
Now, you know what, we have people, hey, we've got just a few weeks till the end of the year.
Yep.
And if they're selling a home now, and it might be closing in January, they're going to be looking for another home.
Yep.
So what should they be thinking if they're looking for another home while selling their current one?
Yep. Well, the big thing first is making sure that if they haven't spoken with the lender yet, to get in touch with the lender. Because you need to make sure, get the financing in place, and that way if there's any little hurdle or any extra step that needs to be taken, we're getting it addressed now instead of in 3 or 4 months when you're out, or 3 or 4 weeks when you're out looking at properties and starting to write offers. So we just want to be proactive in getting everything addressed, because a lot of times people don't expect, if you haven't looked at your credit report for the last 6 months or a year, you could have something weird that shows up on credit report, or you might need to move funds from one account to another. Well, the lender might want to see those sourced, so you need to have them in the account for 30 days. Just little things like that you need to make sure everything's prepared for. So getting the financing in place early is a key component with that.
Okay.
One of the things that we always talk about, like Glenn said, is that when we have a consultation, is really preparing and making sure that all of the steps are met. Because if you do have that deadline that you need to sell before purchasing, you need to get all your ducks in a row to be able to do so.
Now, here's the other thing. There's a number, in fact, I got a call from this morning. There's a number of people who are being transferred from one office to another office, and that office might be in Los Angeles, might be in Las Vegas, it might be someplace else, but they gotta have to be there January 1st, and now they're just putting, hey, it's time to put the house on the market. Now, what are the things I heard? Inspections are really, really important before you put the house on the market. How come it's important for somebody like that?
Yeah, inspections are huge, and we always recommend doing that. So the pre-inspection is basically the same as what a buyer will do once they open escrow. So a buyer's going to come in, they're going to hire a third-party inspector, and they're going to pick through your home and try and find every little thing they can that's not working or that's wrong or could become a problem. Well, you do the same thing as a pre-inspection, then you find all those same problems and then address them up front. So have our contractors, your contractor, go in, take care of the repairs, fix everything. So that way when the buyer goes through, everything's in working order. There aren't any problems. And it avoids all those 11th hour negotiations, and it kind of keeps you as a seller in control with that.
That's great advice, because you'd never want to be in the situation where you're about to close and somebody want you to pay for a whole bunch of stuff, especially if you're out of town working.
Yeah,
Exactly. And especially things that could have been taken care of up front that don't cost nearly as much up front when you're doing those and taking care of those items, and when the buyer's going through inspecting it and thinking it's a bigger deal than what it is. We had one recently that it was a $400 fix, but the buyer in their mind thought it was such a big deal that they wanted to cancel the escrow and not letting the $400 fix. And that's why it's so important that we do those inspections up front.
I'd never want something to fall out for $400.
You know, right?
That's just nuts.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being on the show today. The information you provide is invaluable, especially this, last few weeks before the end of the year, because it could make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us on, Steve.
Now, if you'd like to get more information, you want to go to the Silver-Haired Tsunami website. The big thing there, you want to look for Glenna Shannon. You'll see that they're top 1% of realtors in the country. They have great advice. Again, go to the Silver-Haired Tsunami website. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. I have a wonderful segment for you right now. You know what? Alarming fact. 50% of the people who pass away do so without a will or a trust. This can be devastating because they leave their family with a mess. And what I mean by a mess is, you know what, if you have more than $150,000 and you don't have a will or trust, it goes into probate. Okay, now what is probate? Probate is a lawsuit against yourself, funded by yourself, and guess what? You lose. This is the reason why we have Joe Petrocelli here, Petrocelli Law. He's been practicing law for over 30 years, and he's going to help us understand what's going on here and why we need this. Now, if you don't understand, or hey, how am I connecting with this? You want to take a look at Prince. You know what? He died with millions of dollars, and he's got 6 or 7 stepbrothers and sisters that are fighting over things. In fact, that probate won't be solved for multiple years. In fact, they'll be doing tours at his home before the probates get resolved. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for being here. Now, I need you to help us out. Why would somebody need to get a trust and a will?
Well, Steve, there are a lot of different reasons, and depending on who you talk to, they'll usually go into some technical aspects, but I think there are 3 that I usually talk to people about when they come to me and they ask about the need for a trust. A lot of it revolves, in my mind, around just, again, maintaining sort of family relations. As you mentioned, with the Prince situation and the stepbrothers, in stressful times, when a person passes away, a lot of times it brings out the worst in people. And I've seen over the past 20-plus years that I've been around, a lot of bad behavior when all of a sudden somebody passes away. And when you have a trust or you have a will and your estate plan's in order, one of the things that happens is if you have a good estate plan that sets out what your intentions are with respect to your estate, a lot of times it smooths over, it alleviates some of that stress that people are going through, and it really kind of maintains that family bond and that family relationship. So again,
so what you're really saying is, a lot of people start looking at it, mom and dad pass away, what am I going to get? If nothing's set in stone, people tend to fight over things.
Absolutely, and I've got plenty of stories of people, getting into mom and dad's house before anybody else got there, hauling out stuff so that nobody else would know what was there, and it can be a real mess in those situations. And again, it's one of those things that, from a peace of mind standpoint, if you have your estate plan in place and your goals are clearly established, and again, your intentions with respect to your assets are clearly established, it resolves a lot of those things up front and eliminates those possibilities.
What about, if you have a will or trust, does it give, you think about the grieving period. And, if you don't have those documents, people don't have that time to grieve. And, when it comes to probate, explain that. I made my little joke, hey, it's a lot, but that's true.
It was a great analogy, I thought.
It's very true, but, what happens with probate?
Right.
Help us with that.
One of the things, again, with probate is really the state's way of approving the transfer of assets from the person who's deceased to the heirs. And when you die with just a will or without a will, especially with a will, you get to name your executor in the will. The executor has roughly 30 days to open that probate, and if they don't, the probate court could disqualify that person from being the executor, in which case it's sort of free-for-all. Anybody who's interested in the estate, could be any heirs, could be people you haven't seen or had no intention of making executors of your estate, could suddenly pop up and try to become the executor and take control of that estate. And a lot of times 30 days isn't a lot of time when, again, you have these stressful situations, this person just passed away. 30 days isn't a lot of time to get over the grieving period and really prepare yourself to get into what can be a pretty emotional time in terms of probating an estate. When you have a trust, you don't have any of those time frames. So it gives the person who you name, you choose your successor trustee, the person who's going to take care and administer your estate, make sure that your last wishes are taken care of and done in the way that you want it. They have some time to go through that grieving process without having to worry about losing control and without you having to worry about somebody, again, coming in and becoming the executive of your estate that you never had any intention of putting in that position.
Now, talk about probate fees. A lot of people, I heard somebody's son said, oh, no, it won't cost very much.
Right, and it's a common misconception, but one of the things is, again, the probate code establishes how much the executor can receive statutorily, and also how much the attorney can receive. And then there's some other probate fees as well. There's a referee that comes in to value the entire estate, and the estate fees are they're based on the full value of the assets. So if you have a house that's worth $500,000, even if there's a $400,000 mortgage on it, the fees associated with probate are based on that $500,000. And if all you had is that house, the fees associated with that for just the executor and just the attorney would be $26,000, and those are statutory fees, they're set by the statute.
So now what's the minimum level, like for example, if you have, I know it's $150,000, so if you have more than $150,000 in assets, you want to have it in the trust. If it's less than that, what happens then?
If it's less than that, there's actually a simplified process. But if it actually goes through probate, the fees would be 4% of the first $100,000. So you're looking at least $4,000 times two. $4,000 for the attorney, $4,000 for the executor.
Oh, wow, that's expensive.
Right.
So you're looking at 8 to 12%. That's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Joe, thank you so much for being on our show. This is wonderful information. It tells somebody, you know what, spend $13,000, $15,000, $3,000 because it could save you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 if you were to pass away for your loved ones.
Absolutely.
Thanks again for being part of the show. For more information, you want to go to the Silver-Haired Tsunami website, especially to get information about Joe Petrocelli and Petrocelli Law. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Steve Sexton of the Silver-Haired Tsunami TV show. We're doing a segment on real estate, and this is the next segment. We're talking about those people who've, lived in their house for 20 or 30 years, maybe even 40. My parents lived in their house for 60 years. And you know what? They haven't sold that property. They don't know what they don't know. We see this same scenario with people in rental properties. And a lot of times when they have that primary residence, they're looking to sell and move into a continued care retirement community or a continued care rental community where they've got to pay a significant amount of money down, and then they've got to support an income that, a monthly fee that goes along with these communities. And you know what? They want to look at an option. One of those options could be a 1031 exchange, but a lot of people don't know what they don't know, and that's the reason why we have David Greenberger here. Now, David, if we have somebody who has a large primary residence, I'll give an example. Somebody, they bought it 40 years ago for $150,000. It's worth $1.3 million now. They have that $500,000. It's called the 121 IRS exclusion. Mm-hmm. So that means they pay taxes on almost $600,000.
Right.
Now, if you're writing that check to the IRS, it's $210,000. The problem is these people need that extra $210,000 to go towards paying an income at their new continued care retirement community.
Okay.
Now, how can a 1031 help them?
Well, what they need to do is they need to try to reinvest as much of the proceeds from that property as they can. So that's going to create the income stream that they want. And in order to do that, they need to shelter that profit from, or that gain from taxation. The only way they can do that is with a 1031 exchange. And so they have to qualify the property as a 1031 exchange property, which means it has to be a property that, at least in part, is used for business. So they would have to do one of a number of things. They have to either rent a portion of the property or have a home office at the property, and that would allow them to back out the value of the rental portion or the home office portion. and they could exchange that piece of it. As you said, the first $500,000 is excluded from taxes, so we want to work on the balance of the gain over the $500,000.
So what you're saying is if somebody were to rent a portion of their property, say half, for a period of 6 months, a couple of years, especially when there's probably a couple of years before they move into one of these continued care retirement communities, and providing they documented it on their tax return, they would be able to 1031 exchange that portion they had rented, and because of the 1031 exchange is a deferral, they don't have to pay taxes on that portion.
Correct.
And then since the other portion has the basis and that $500,000 exclusion, they wouldn't have to pay taxes on that.
Right.
And in that situation, they could use that portion that they 1031 exchanged into something else that could create the income that they need to go live at their property.
Right, because they're not carving a lot of money away for taxes, they can reinvest as much as possible that comes out of the sale of that primary. But it has to be qualified in part as an investment. Another thing they can do is move out of that property if they did have a second home and create a new residence for themselves, which would be the second home, and then the primary can be exchanged completely just in the fashion that we talked about, because they no longer live there. Whether it's rented or held for appreciation, it still qualifies as an exchange property. So it's either make a portion of your property into business purpose by using it as an office and documenting it, or renting part of it, or move out of it, and then the entire property is an exchange property.
So to make it real simple, people are going to have to change the use on a portion of their property.
Correct.
Then they need to do the 1031 exchange.
Right.
And then they need to figure out where that 1031 exchange portion is going to go to create the income.
Right. Step one is going to be to create the exchangeable asset, which means they have to use the property in some way for business, and they have to document that. Step two is they do the exchange, which we can help them with, but that doesn't get started until they go ahead and sell that property. And step three is the reinvestment into something that will create the income. And there are lots of different investments that satisfy exchanging that will create a good return, and that income can be used to pay for the continuing care property that they want to move to.
David, thank you so much for educating our viewers.
Sure.
Now, the next segment is going to be all about where you can move your income into. If you're looking at a 1031 exchange as part of your transfer or your transition of your real estate, you want to make sure you go to the link just below, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next segment. What a wonderful show. Joe Petrocelli rocked it with making sure your estate plan doesn't fall through the cracks in the holidays. We had Paula Shaw helping us deal with those crazy, stressful situations that we think should be joyful during this holiday seasons. We had David Greenberger talking about 1031 exchanges, and Glenna Shannon talk to us about why real estate sales are up and how it could make a difference for you and your dollar. Hey, wonderful show. You want to see more episodes, you want to go to the Silver Hair Tsunami website, follow us on Facebook. Great show next week. See you then.